So I kind of moved up all the way, from 800 up to the marathon. And yeah, my best distance was definitely the marathon. Marathon, which I ran in 2 hours and 12 minutes. My name is Hugo Broek from the Netherlands. I'm 42 years old. I started running at the age of 15 and I've been running until the age of 37, the last 14 years professionally. And I always had an interest in coaching. Did some coaching as soon as I came to Kenya in 2007. And I have studied human movement sciences, which is related, of course, to coaching. So 5 years ago, I started working as a coach, finished my career as a runner. I'm still running a bit for fun and for health, but now I focus on coaching. Yeah, I coach at the moment. For the last 5 years, actually, I've been coaching the National Academy in India, middle and long distance running. And apart from that, I coach some people from all over the world online, and I work with the Kenya Experience, which is a London-based company that organizes running camps for amateur runners in Kenya. Yeah, so I do different things. I also have a foundation, a charity. We spend about, I think at the moment, around 130,000 US dollars over the last few years in improving public education in Kenya.
Really? What's the organization called?
We are called Kibet for Kids Foundation. My wife is called Hilda Kibet.
Yes.
And she came up with the idea of starting a charity. So I met my wife in 2000 when I was 24 and she was 20, and I came to Kenya to improve my running. And she was here. She just finished high school. I just finished college, and she started training to try to get a scholarship. She wanted to study in the US. In the end, she did get the scholarship, but I persuaded her to come to the Netherlands. So in 2001, she came to the Netherlands. She studied physiotherapy while I was running and working. And later, she also became a professional runner. And we trained in Kenya part of the year. And in end of 2007, I gave up my job in the Netherlands.
What was your job back then?
It wasn't really related to anything like running, but I was working for a company that did medical acceptance of insurances, and at the same time my main job was people. I would take care of about 2,000 employees from about 20 different companies who once they would get sick or get injured, I had to make sure they would get their right treatment and would get back to work as soon as possible, or maybe do alternative work. If someone had a foot injury, maybe they could do a sitting job, what I mean? So yeah, it was interesting. So
you're doing that as a full-time job while training as a professional athlete? I
actually never worked full-time. I as soon as I graduated from university, or how do you say, as soon as I finished university, I looked for a 25-hour job. So basically 5 hours a day.
Yeah.
I had this vision or dream that I wanted to become a professional runner, and I was a pretty decent runner when I finished college, but I wasn't yet good enough to make any money with it or to consider myself a top runner.
Sorry to cut you off, what was the beginning of your passion for running? And so you say you started running when you're 15.
Yeah.
Was that like, you're in school, I'm sure, and you like saw athletes and you kind of, I want to see how good I can become in running? Or how did that evolve, that passion?
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, I was a kid who would always play outside. Football, baseball, hockey, basketball, all these things. And I realized when I was young, 10 years, 12 years, that I wouldn't actually get tired. I didn't really know that feeling of being tired. I saw other children bending forward from tiredness, and I didn't have that. So I remember when I was 13, there was a race in the village where I lived. 20,000 people.
What's the name of the village? Just
Castricum.
Castricum.
Yes.
Okay.
If people from South Korea want to come there, it's a beautiful place along the beach in the Netherlands.
Castricum.
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 Yes,
okay.
with a C.
Okay, I have to look it up.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place. It has big forests, a coastline. So anyway,
it wasn't altitude. It was sea level.
No, it's sea level. Sea level.
But you always played outside, so maybe that developed your lung capacity or aerobic capacity.
A bit, I guess. Yeah. And so there was a race in our village, and I remember telling my parents that I think I will be pretty good in running because I don't get tired so quickly. So we had a race, 250 kids, and I was second in that race. And it was the first time in my life, of course, I would stand up on a podium and, you know, get a prize. And, and all my friends were like, how is that possible? You never train. How can you be second among 250 children? And they thought I was lying. But and then I started enjoying it. So I would, every month or so, I would go on my bicycle to a nearby competition for children, all like road races, you know, not on the track, just road races. And I won always. So when I was
without training.
Yeah, without training. Yeah, well, I was a football player, but
oh,
you know,
yes, of course, Netherlands.
so I played 3 times a week football.
Yeah.
Not American football, soccer.
Yeah, soccer. Yeah,
soccer.
of course. Yeah.
That's big in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
So, yeah. When I was 15, someone told me that you should join a club because I think you're talented, and that's, you know, that person just came to me, somebody I don't know, and I still don't know who it was, but he told me, I think you should join a club because you should do something with that talent. And that's when I joined the club. I called them up, and they told me that at your age, when you're 15, you have to do everything, like shot put, long jump, you know. And I said, no, you know, look at my body, you know, I can't do shot put, long jump is not my thing. I just want to run. So luckily they gave me permission to do only running training, which still meant I would do strength training, core exercises, you know, jumping and all that. It wasn't just, you know, running for an hour or something, but I was focusing on running from the age of 15. And within a few months I knew, like, this is my thing. I liked it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I liked it. So yeah, then it stuck to me, so I kept doing that. And
you ran in your university as well, or they had a team, or?
Yeah, no, in the Netherlands it's you join a club. So when you're in university, you can run for university, but it's not a big thing like in the US, you know, where you have the NCAA.
Right.
We don't have that in the Netherlands.
Like
The students who run for university, that's mostly, you know, people who just like to have fun, and sometimes they're a little bit better than amateur level, but if you want to be a good runner, you're mostly in a club. You have your own coach there, you pay the club, and you run for the club. Yeah, so that's what I would do. I had a really good coach. I was lucky. I got a good coach when I was young.
You stayed with the coach since you're 15 and throughout your...
Until the age of 30.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And at the age of 31, I moved to Kenya with my wife.
Yeah.
Because by that moment she had become a professional runner of a much higher level than me. I mean, I was like national level, and I was making some money with it, but I would say I wouldn't give up my job, because if I would get injured, you know, it would be a big problem also financially. But she made much more money as a runner, and she got a good contract with Adidas. And yeah, I didn't really have to work anymore. So it was always our dream to be full-time athletes and just focus on running completely.
Yeah.
And we felt like the conditions here in E10 in Kenya were so much better, so perfect for running.
Yes.
Compared to the Netherlands. Yes. In the Netherlands, in summertime, you have pretty good conditions, but it's often also cold. You don't have the altitude. You don't have, you know, the atmosphere that you have here, right?
Yeah, you cannot find any place like E10, I don't think.
You can't find any place like E10, exactly.
For running.
Yes, exactly, and especially for my wife, of course, who, you know, she was a world class athlete. In the Netherlands, she would be doing all her sessions by herself.
And no one would catch her.
No.
Even men.
The few men that would be able to stay with her, they would have their own career and their own coach and their own training program, right?
Yeah.
So we came here, and that's when I changed to another coach. Yeah. And so in 2007 we came to live here and train here. And so you asked also about the foundation. For the first 5 years that we lived here, we just tried with our own money, you know, to help some people here and there.
Yeah.
But then we were preparing for the Olympic Games in London 2012.
Yeah.
And I remember we were in the US, we were training there in Boulder, and my wife was saying, like, hey, I want to be able to do something more than just, you know, what we do with our own money, because you can only do so much. And then we said, like, hey, we have the contacts all over the world, you know, we are still running, we have interviews now and then, we can spread the word, you know, so why don't we start a charity foundation, you know? So that's what we did, and then that's when we started raising money and starting projects. Yeah.
What does the charity do?
So we decided to focus on children and children in impoverished areas, and we I looked at the records, at the statistics, and I saw like the biggest problem for children in this country is that like the poorest 50% of the country wouldn't go to high school often. What happens is that the people in impoverished areas, they depend on public services, and the public services are not always up to the mark, let's say. So there are a lot of public schools that don't even have the facilities, by far not have the facilities that the private schools have. So the children in the public, the poorer children are going to the public schools. Children from middle class and upper class families, they go to private schools, and they just have much better circumstances to study. You know what I mean? So at the end, they all do the same exam. So of course, those children in the poorer areas, they can't really compete with those children from the private schools. We've been to schools where children had to sit outside and draw in the sand, instead of writing in they didn't have books, they didn't even have a classroom. So we said, look, we have to change this, and we are going to make those classrooms of the same standard and get you enough books and all that, so that the children get the same facilities, as the private schools, and then they can compete with them on a national level, and then those children can also go to high school. Because if they kind of fail in primary school, then it ends there. They don't go anymore to high schools, and then they're kind of lost in a way. Like they can't really get a proper job later if you only have primary school, and then not even good primary school. So we felt like we should help there. So that's what we do. We've built one primary school. We're now building a second primary school, and we are helping at there's a school for mentally handicapped children in Iten that had around 85 children on the school, but they had a waiting list of 190 children. So those are like mentally handicapped children that don't have a place to stay. They stay with their parents, but often the parents don't know how to teach them in the proper way, often these children experience things like abuse. Sometimes people hide them because they're scared of what the community thinks about them. So we are making the school bigger now, and so that they can have 120 more pupils. So instead of 80, they will have 200 children in the school. So those things are that's some of the things we do.
That's great. Kibet for kids.
It's called Kibet for Kids Foundation.
I'll have to find the link and put in the video. Hopefully some people will get to know more about the foundation. How long has it been that you and Hilda have been working on?
So we started end of 2013, our first project. So
after London,
exactly. End of 2013 we started. So let's say five and a half years now, almost 6 years. It's. But that's one of the things, of course, that you can do, when you're in Kenya. I mean, it's not that you can't do anything in the Netherlands, but it's relatively easy here to have a bigger impact. You know what I mean? Like if you have $10,000, you can build a classroom and you can help, 30, 40 children for many generations. So in the end, it will be hundreds or thousands of children. With the same amount of money, you can't do the same in Western countries. Plus, they don't need it that much. There's still help needed, of course, but here the problems are so much bigger.
The schools here and the systems. I just don't know what to say. Sometimes I see the kids, even on the streets, they don't have proper clothing. I don't know how they're getting their food, and just
it's a problem sometimes. And then here, actually, Iten is relatively well off.
Is it right?
Yeah, it's relatively well off. If you go down in the valley, I mean, also the schools where we build are not here, but we build in the valley here. If you go like 20 kilometers from here, you can see the difference between the children there and the children here. Here, the people are better off still. You should go there, and then you will see there's more poverty there. If you go really in the valley, like 1 hour drive, 1.5 hour drive, you'll see real poverty. You'll see people dying, actually, from diarrhea, from
It's lack of water,
diseases,
lack of
from-
food.
yeah, lack of water, lack of food, and those are things that people don't have to die from, you know. And here in Iten they don't die from that, but
True. Yeah.
there they do. Yeah. So I think for me, you know, it's if I think about what I want in life. Of course, there's always many things you want. I mean, I want to be a good father and a good husband. I want to provide for my children.
Right.
But maybe the most important thing is to kind of leave a mark, to leave a legacy, you know. And that sounds very big, but I'm now only 42. I hope when I'm 70, I can say, you know, I've touched many people's lives, you know, and I've kind of left, you know, a footprint. I've left a legacy of, you know, having helped hundreds or maybe thousands of people. So one way is through the foundation. That's the main thing, but also through coaching. Of course, I hope to be able to change people's life and to help people. And I mean, as a coach, the same way, you know, when you're a teacher, of course, you reach people, you touch people's lives, and for me, that's the beauty of coaching. You know, that you've got young kids, 15, 16, 17 years, and you help them and you give them the right guidance and the right coaching, and they become better athletes, they become better people, and they make a living of themselves. They can sometimes even help their family. Like,
are these young athletes from Kenya or from India?
so I'm coaching Indians.
Yeah.
It would be the same if I was coaching Kenyans, I think, but I'm not employed in Kenya, so I have helped Kenyans before I got a real job, you know, before I got an official job. I was here in Kenya and I was running and I was coaching some Kenyans, helping them to get a scholarship.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
to Netherlands.
To the US.
To US. Oh.
Because you know, like in the Netherlands, we don't have this NCAA system.
Right, they don't have the athletic scholarships.
There are no athletic scholarships because you don't run for your university.
Right.
But in the US, that's the beauty there. You know, they give out $40,000 a year for one. That's the value of one scholarship.
Right.
And if you're a Kenyan and you can run, and you don't have to be like a world-class runner, but you have to be a decent runner and have pretty good grades.
Right.
You know, then you can go to college in the US for free, which is amazing. So that was another thing for me that I felt like, hey, I can do something here because I have some contacts in the US, and if a Kenyan 18-year-old boy writes an email, you know, to an American coach like, oh, I'm running 8:30 on a 3K. What do you think he says? Like, yeah, right. You know, should I believe you? But if I'm there and people know they can trust me, of course I should make sure they can trust me.
Mm-hmm.
I can be a voice for them, and I can record them. I can look at the races. I can video it, and I can send it, you know, to coaches and make those contacts. So that's what I started doing. That's how I tried to help people.
When you first came to Iten with Hilda.
Yes, exactly.
That's kind of
From 2009, actually, I started helping people get scholarships.
That's amazing. I mean, that's really changes their life, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's a huge opportunity.
It's a huge impact. We started with her family, actually. Her brother and two sisters went to the US. They are now on a scholarship at the University of Arizona.
Ah, yeah.
But then others, you know, other people came, and first I did all that, you know, just for fun and helping people. Then in when was this? I think it must be 2016. I was contacted by a German company, Scholarbook, and they actually do the same thing but within Europe. So they help European athletes get a scholarship in the US, and they were like, hey, we want to set up the same thing in Kenya.
Yeah.
With the only difference that Europeans, they pay a lot of money to get a scholarship in the US.
Yeah.
Like they pay, I think, like €1,000 each, and then they get a lot of help in getting a scholarship in the US. Whereas with the Kenyans, they wouldn't pay anything, but the American colleges would pay for getting Kenyans. So then the German company came in contact with me, or I came in contact with them, and then together we set up a whole system with a website with all videos and interviews and everything online. And
is that still going
it's still
on?
working, yeah. So I did that for about 1.5 years. But it costed me too much time. It was like 20 hours a week every single week. And then I had my other job, you know. So after 1.5 years, I felt like it was running well, and I left it. So now there are actually Germans and Kenyans who are doing that together, and
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's great, and I'm happy that I helped them set it up, and
Yeah, I
now
mean,
they don't need me anymore.
you're integral part of it. Without
Yeah,
you probably wouldn't have started.
Yeah, I don't think. They wouldn't have started it if I hadn't helped them. But we found each other, so we needed each other, and we helped each other, and we set up that system. And because of that, many more Kenyans can study in the U.S.
Yeah.
And now I don't do it anymore because in the end you have to make choices. I can't do everything, and I have 2 young daughters who also need some time.
Right.
I have my work and charity and all that, so I had to make choices.
Right.
But I saw like it was running well, so so I left it to them.
So now you have your foundation, you're coaching Indian national team.
Yeah, it's not a real national team.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a little bit complicated, but this is a team that was started by an Indian company.
Yeah.
The Indian company is called Broek.
Yeah.
So they are the company that organizes Delhi Half Marathon, Mumbai Marathon, like those big road races.
Yeah.
They found a partner in Global Sports Communication. Global Sports is a company from the Netherlands.
Yes.
Jos Hermans.
Yeah.
They are the management of Eliud Kipchoge,
Haile Gebrselassie,
and all those big athletes. You know. So I know them very well, and Global Sports told me like, hey, we're looking for a coach. Procam is looking for a coach for that team. We want to start a team, and we want to recruit young, talented Indians, like raw talents. We do time trials nationwide. We look for raw talents, and we try to bring them to the international top, like Olympic level.
What's the average age of those athletes who come into your program?
Yeah, 15 to 18 years.
15 to 18.
Yes.
Wow, so this is really youth kind of developing program, talent.
Yes. So we are not a national team. We're kind of, we started as a team. The initiative came from those companies, but later they rebranded us the National Athletics Academy.
Yeah.
So academy means like young people.
Yeah.
Right. And but the only thing is that right now, so the people that we started with 5 years ago, it was January 5th. 2015, so that's 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So for instance, someone like Murli Gavit, 4 years ago we recruited him. He just started running and he ran like 33 minutes on a 10k. Now he runs 28:38 and he's the best Indian runner. And then Abhishek Pal, he was together with Murli, the beginning of the project. He's now the second best Indian runner in the 10,000. So at the moment our team has the two best runners in 5,000 and 10,000. So we're not a national team, but part of the team is operating at that level, I would say.
Right, you're producing athletes who kind of become that.
And that's the goal. We have kind of the same goal as the national team. The only difference is that the national team, those are all senior athletes. So once people come in the top 5 of the country or so, they can join the national team.
Yeah.
Right? So we recruit them much earlier when they might be number 8 at the junior national championships, but we feel like, hey, this kid is talented, let's take him in our team if he wants, so that's what we do.
That's amazing. It's kind of similar to Brother Column's camp in a way.
In a way it is
developing the young talent.
Exactly. So in a way it is there are a lot of similarities, and we also have the issue with the national team in a way that maybe Brother Column also has this. When people come to a high level, the national team start pulling on the athletes like, oh, come to the national team.
Then it conflicts with your own training schedule and philosophies.
Yes, of course our athletes, they have stayed with us, and from age of 15, 16, 17, and then when they reach a high level, they don't want to leave to the national team, they want to stay with us. But the facilities with the national team are generally better than with us. So it's still developing, and things are improving every year. So we hope that at some point we are kind of equal to the national team in a way that we will have the same facilities, in terms of food and physiotherapy and all those things.
Yeah.
In that way, it's not yet comparable. We don't have the same facilities, and if our athletes want that, they have to join the national team. But they don't want. Basically, they don't want to leave the team, because they don't want to change coach, and they don't want to.
There's a lot of layers to that, yeah, not just
course.
running, but like people, maybe some politics too, some social
Exactly.
things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So.
So you do that, and also you also do online coaching.
Yeah, yeah, that's more like an extra thing that I was never really planning to do that, but people contacted me like, hey, can you coach? Do you do online coaching? And then I said, not really, but maybe I can start it. So yeah, it started 1-2 people, a few years ago, and now I coach 10 people, and I stopped it there. I don't want more than 10 people, so I coach 10 people online, and some of them are real amateur runners who will run 3.5 hours on the marathon, and a few of them are high level, like Olympic level or European top, let's say.
Oh wow.
Actually, the best of them is an Estonian runner who I say I coach him online, but actually half of the year he's here in Kenya, so I would train here with him.
Yeah.
So
what's his name?
Roman Fosti.
Roman Fosti.
Estonia.
He's an elite runner.
Yeah, he's an elite runner. He just qualified. Actually, last month he qualified for the World Championships in Doha.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how does your online coaching kind of work? Like people approach you, and then if you think it's a good fit, you give them a program, and you just kind of keep up with them. And
yeah, well, I normally explain the way, like my training philosophy a bit, and see if it fits with them, and then I send them an intake sheet. They give me information about themselves. So in the beginning you just have to gather as much information as possible, and then I normally make a program per month, which I send to them by email, and then we have WhatsApp contact. That's unlimited. So for some people that means every day, discussing some things through WhatsApp. Others once a week, or even only twice a month. It depends on
the personality.
Exactly, depends on the people, and the person, and on the situation. I don't like the kind of coaching where you kind of make a standard program and people just do their stuff. I don't feel good about that. I always wanna be able to make people the best they can be, considering the circumstances. So if I coach someone who's a banker in Dubai, so of course it's hard for him, working more than full-time, training sometimes in 40 degrees Celsius. You can't expect that person to reach the same level as someone who trains in Kenya and who doesn't work. But considering the circumstances, I still try to get the best out of them. So you need to have often contact. How was your training today? Did you recover well? What was the speed? Okay, maybe we should change the next session a bit. So you want to be able to be flexible and adjust the program.
That's amazing.
So those are the things I do.
Kind of move gear from running to kind of Kenya. When you first came to Kenya, well, I guess you could also share like you say you weren't like full-time runner professionally, but your time is actually really good, I think. What was your like main distance when you're running, and like what were you focusing on in your...
Let me first chase away the dog. Tuli, Willy, sir. I started running at the age of 15. Of course, I did, the shorter distances like 800, 1500, 3000 meters. Because you don't run marathons when you're that age. You see people who do half marathons when they're, 16, 17, but those are not the people that become good runners, generally speaking. When you want to compete at a national level with the juniors, you run 3000 meters, 1500, later 5000 meters. So I kind of moved up all the way, from 800 up to the marathon. And my best distance was definitely the marathon. Marathon, which I ran in 2 hours and 12 minutes, which for me was pretty good. I would say like I've come very, very close to the maximum I could do, I think, with my body, with my talent.
I mean, that's a really good time. I mean, we're in Kenya. I think Kenyans are just another level, maybe. In Kenya, well, you still get respected as a Mzungu, as a white guy running 212. They're like, oh, that's not bad for a Mzungu, So
But of course, with that time you're number 250 or 400 in the country. I don't know even which number on an average year, right? But for me that was good. Yeah, I ran a 2:12 and a 63 half marathon and a 28:55 10K. So those were my best performances.
Yeah. And that's really, really good time. And for me, but when you came to Kenya, you saw Kenyan runners training. Did you feel like, or some people say like Kenyans are like born with it, they have genetically like have some advantages and stuff. What was your impression when you came here and like when you saw how they train, how they live?
There's definitely a genetic advantage among Kenyans as a group, right? That doesn't mean that other countries can't beat them. There can be, a super talent in South Athletic scholarships because you don't run for your university.
Right.
But in the US, that's the beauty there. They give out $40,000 a year for one. That's the value of one scholarship.
Right.
And if you're a Kenyan and you can run, and you don't have to be like a world-class runner, but you have to be a decent runner and have pretty good grades.
Right.
Then you can go to college in the US for free, which is amazing. So that was another thing for me that I felt like, hey, I can do something here because I have some contacts in the US, and if a Kenyan 18-year-old boy writes an email, to an American coach like, oh, I'm running 8:30 on a 3K. What do you think he says? Like, yeah, right. Should I believe you? But if I'm there and people know they can trust me, of course I should make sure they can trust me. I can be a voice for them, and I can record them. I can look at the races. I can video it, and I can send it, to coaches and make those contacts. So that's what I started doing. That's how I tried to help people.
When you first came to E10 with Hilda?
Yes, exactly.
It's kind of
From 2009, actually, I started helping people get scholarships.
That's amazing. I mean, it really changes their life, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's a huge opportunity.
It's a huge impact. We started with her family, actually. Her brother and two sisters went to the US. They are now on a scholarship at the University of Arizona. But then others, other people came, and first I did all that, just for fun and helping people. Then in when was this? I think it must be 2016. I was contacted by a German company, Scholarbook, and they actually do the same thing but within Europe. So they help European athletes get a scholarship in the US, and they were like, hey, we want to set up the same thing in Kenya.
Yeah.
With the only difference that Europeans, they pay a lot of money to get a scholarship in the US.
Yeah.
Like they pay, I think, like €1,000 each, and then they get a lot of help in getting a scholarship in the US. Whereas with the Kenyans, they wouldn't pay anything, but the American colleges would pay for getting Kenyans. So then the German company came in contact with me, or I came in contact with them, and then together we set up a whole system with a website with all videos and interviews and everything online. And
is that still going on?
It's still working, yeah. So
wow.
I did that for about 1.5 years. But it costed me too much time. It was like 20 hours a week every single week. And then I had my other job, So after 1.5 years, I felt like it was running well, and I left it. So now there are actually Germans and Kenyans who are doing that together. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's great, and I'm happy that I helped them set it up, and
yeah,
now
I mean,
they don't need me anymore.
You're an integral part of it. Without you probably wouldn't have started.
Yeah, I don't think. They wouldn't have started it if I hadn't helped them. But we found each other, so we needed each other, and we helped each other, and we set up that system. And because of that, many more Kenyans can study in the US. Yeah. And now I don't do it anymore because in the end you have to make choices. I can't do everything, and I have 2 young daughters who also need some time. Right. I have my work and charity and all that, so I had to make choices. Right. But I saw like it was running well, so so I left it to them.
So now you have your foundation, you're coaching Indian national team.
Yeah, it's not a real national team.
Really interesting point that they were doing it even without like exerting themselves. They're just having fun.
Exactly. That's important.
No
because
strain on your body.
if you would take the same kids and tell them like we are training and every day you run this 3 kilometer and 3 kilometer back, probably by the time they're 10 years old they're mentally burnt out,
Right.
or at the age of 15, you know.
Right.
But here they're just playing, and they start training when they're 18 or 14 when it's young. Some of them start training at the age of 20, right? So
they're like more ready than any athletes maybe in the West.
Yeah, so they have built their aerobic system, but not only that, they also, like, if I look at my wife, for instance, Hilda Kibet, she and her whole family, if you look at her family, Hilda ran 30:51 on a 10K. Her sister Sylvia ran 30:47 on a 10K. She's a 2-time silver medalist at the World Championships. Then she has 3 sisters who all ran around 32 flat to 32:15 on a 10K. So those are 5. And there's a brother who ran 1:46 on an 800 meters in college in the US. So this is a super talented family.
Yeah.
Of course, there must be a genetic aspect, but also if you look at their life from when they were young. They would walk to the nearby river, which is about 500 meters. They would fill a bag of 20 liters of water, put on their back, walk up the hill.
Yeah.
It's a steep uphill, 500 meters. Yeah. Pour down the water in a pot and walk back, and do this several times a day.
Every day.
So you're doing strength training without knowing. You're building your aerobic system, but you're also building your whole body, right? So by the time you're 20, you're ready to train very hard.
Yeah.
You can handle so much, you know, because all your tendons and your muscles, you've run around, you've jumped over fences, you have carried the water, they carry firewood to their houses, so their life has been so physical, right? And then that determination, because, you know, if they make like, you know, $500, which is a relatively small amount for a runner, that's like 10 months of salary for most people in Kenya. Right?
Yeah.
So those things matter.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of those things, but I would say it definitely also starts with the physical talent. Yeah. Because I mean there are other places in the world where people live at high altitude and would be willing to train hard because, you know, they are relatively poor, but they just don't have the talent, right? So talent must be there, but it's not everything.
Right.
Because that's also why you see that some Kenyan runners make it to the top and others don't.
True, right? Yeah.
And that's not only a matter of talent. That's also a matter of how disciplined are you. You know, how focused are you? How serious are you? How intelligent are you? How patient are you? You know? So there's a lot of mental factors that should be right also.
Yeah, I once met this guy who won Athens Marathon 2 times. His name is Raymond Bed. He was living with his friend who was also training, and his friend was obviously very talented physically. I could see his body, long legs, thin.
Yeah.
He had the shape, but he was very impatient. So he would always get injured every year.
Yeah.
That would not help him to, you know, go build up.
Yeah.
So he was always stuck at 220 marathon level for 5 years.
Yeah.
And there was just that impatience and just being able to have the discipline. Yeah. Just wait for, you know, recover fully and
be smart and do the right training at the right time. Yeah. I mean, all those things they matter.
Yeah. And just funny thing about the barefoot running and like running to school and back. I was just once talking to the athletes at the Brother Collins camp, and we're just somehow, I don't know why, but we were just talking about yoga, and we talked about barefoot because you do yoga with barefoot, no shoes. And Brother Colin was talking about, barefoot running is really good. You guys probably know because you ran to school barefoot when you're young. So I was like, is this serious? You all ran to school barefoot until you went to high school? Because that's what they were talking about. And they were looking at me as if I'm like a total idiot or stranger, and like, That's the life here.
Yeah.
They don't even comment on it. I was like, shit.
Yeah, for most it's like that. And I know also my family, they would tell me stories, like, yeah, maybe when they were 8 years old, they would get shoes, but like plastic shoes.
Yeah.
They were really hard and they would cut inside your heel. So their leg would start bleeding. So they would kind of, get rid of those shoes and run without shoes again. Yeah. So it's pretty normal. I mean, people wouldn't spend money on shoes. They would feel like it's not necessary.
Right. I mean, also when you don't have enough money to even put food on the table, shoes probably is the last thing. On your mind.
Exactly. And when you don't think about it, the kids don't need it. And of course, here in Iten it's different. This is kind of a city for Kenyan standards, even though it's a small city. 10,000 people maybe. So, but here you can find thrown away bottles, broken glass, and you can find, things you just don't want to step into with your food. But in most of the villages, especially 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when all those athletes grew up, there was nothing, So there was nothing you could step into except just a thorn from a bush. I mean, still painful, but they could more easily, I think, run or walk to school without shoes.
Yeah. And
those things help for sure.
Yeah. I mean, even Rudisha was on one documentary talking about how he thinks running around barefoot when he was young helped him become an athlete he is. Because of like developing his tendons and muscles.
Of course.
And we could also think about Ethiopian runner
Bikila.
Yeah, Bikila.
Was it 1964 when he was the Olympic champion?
Rome.
Yeah.
Rome and Japan twice. Twice in a row. I heard he ran in Puma shoes in Japan because he was getting sponsored. But he never trained in those shoes, I heard.
Okay.
He trained in barefoot, and on the day of Olympic, he wore the shoes because of contract, won the Olympics with world record, and it's crazy.
Amazing.
But like you're saying, it's not just talent or genetic, because like when you look at Robertsons or Julian Wonders, some, I guess, people who have backgrounds in, I guess, white genetics, who come from the West, but they come here young. Like Robertson brothers came in when they were like 16 or 17.
Yes.
Trained for more than 10 years, and they're now like competing and beating some Kenyans at the world level. But that is very rare for sure.
It is rare. So that's why I always say, it's not like people from other countries or other races or other tribes, they can't beat the Kenyans. You can. I mean, look at Paula Radcliffe, who's still the world record holder, right? And I mean, you guys, there was a South Korean Olympic champion, right?
Yes.
1992 in the marathon.
In Spain.
In Barcelona.
In Barcelona, yes.
Yeah, of course, this was when there weren't yet, were not so many Kenyans yet at the world-class level. But, I mean, there are top athletes all over the world who can compete with the Kenyans. It's just that, like I said, it's just 1 in a million in other countries, and here it's maybe 1 in 100 or 1 in 10 that can reach that world-class level. There are just so many more here, and of course, when there are so much more, the chances of them actually becoming the Olympic champion and the Olympic or the world record holder are also much higher, right? It's just like here you're fishing. It's like you're fishing in a pool, right? And it's just
so many
completely full of fish, right? So it's like thousands of fish. And in other countries, you're fishing in the same kind of pool, but there's just one fish going around and try to catch it,
Right.
So that's the difference. Yeah. So.
And also the money is a big part, I think. I met this guy in the center. He's a programmer. He's 26, and now he wants to train.
Yeah.
Because he's telling me I don't make any money being a programmer. But I see my friends, these people runners, who go win races, come back with millions of shillings. And
Yeah.
So that's, I think, also a big part. But compare that to Seoul, South Korea or Holland, you get a job, stable job, you're okay. Like it's not
exactly.
like you don't have to like fight every day to run and change your life. But here, I think the drive is just completely different. It comes from much deeper level. And it's really.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, let's face it. To reach the top, or even to reach your personal top in long distance running, you have to be mentally extremely tough. You have to be a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, to hurt yourself every day.
Yeah.
Of course, you know, for I've been a professional runner. I enjoy the life, you know, and in one way it's an easy life because you train in the morning. And I mean, in our sport, you know, you can't train 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day, just like in cycling. You know, in cycling you can do that, but in running, you know, you train in maybe 1 or 2 hours in the morning, you train maybe 1 or 2 hours in the evening, and in between you rest, you relax. It's an enjoyable life, but of course you have to be able to hurt yourself. You have to get out of your comfort zone, and most people wouldn't be able to do that, you know. So it needs a special mind, you know, it needs a special person kind of to be able to handle that and kind of enjoy it, you know.
Yeah.
So and of course when you're comfortable in your life, like you say, when you're a programmer in the Western world and you make $2,000, $3,000 or euro per month or something, and you're okay.
Oh, much more. Much more.
Yeah, or much more than that. Whatever you're making, you know, you're comfortable.
Okay.
Why would you give that up and start running? You should be out of your mind. But so for us, we, you know, in the Western world, you know, you have to start running when you're younger, and then you do it through college because you love it. And then when you're really, really good, you might say, you know, like I did, like, hey, let me just look for a small job to just pay the bills so that I can focus on my passion. And then the first few years you get people, you know, looking at you a little bit like, okay, you know, sorry for you that you have this lifestyle, you know, where you can't afford a big car and a big house because you're not making much money. And then later, you know, when you reach a higher level and you, then people understand. But you kind of have to, you have to get out of your comfort zone, not just in training, but also in life. You have to kind of give up a comfortable life in the Western world if you want to be a top athlete. Not just in running, but in most sports. You have to, you know, top athletes are the ones living in, you know, student houses until they're like 30 years old, you know, and they live a simple life because they don't make much money. But here it's the other way around. In Kenya, like, you know, people look around at the athletes like those are the people with the big money, you know. So of course not all of them. It's here in E10 maybe 10% of the athletes makes good money, you know, and then maybe another 10 or 20% makes a little bit of money and the rest makes nothing. But still, it's a, you know, pretty good percentage that makes people want to take that, make that choice, you know, and go for it. So.
Speaking of when you chose that kind of unconventional path when you're in Holland, choosing to run and getting a part-time job, do you think you'd have done the same thing if you could go back and just, if you could give yourself advice to yourself in your 20s, what would it be? It's just
it's a good one. I don't think I would change much because most of the things, you know, sometimes things were a struggle, but you learn from it, right? And if I would advise myself, you know, just like the way I'm coaching is the same way I look at life. Like I want athletes to go through certain experiences rather than me always trying to advise them and telling them do this, don't do that, kind of trying to protect them from, you know, negative experiences happening to them and making sure they stay on the right track. Sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time I prefer that they make their own choices, even though I may advise them a little bit, but I want them to make their own choices. And if they fail or if they struggle, they learn much more from that than when I would tell them, no, don't do that. You know what I mean? So you learn from those things. And of course I should be by their side as a coach, as a mentor, to tell them like, hey, you made this choice and this happened, that was not very good, you know, so maybe you should make another plan or another decision, right? So for me, I don't think I made a lot of mistakes, but again, I wouldn't want to change anything. The only thing is, if I look at my own career as a runner, I think sometimes I overdid it, like I trained too hard.
Really?
And yeah, now as a coach, I generally speaking don't train people as hard as I trained. I almost always did 3 workouts a week plus a long run. So I would have a progressive run on Monday plus a gym session. I would have a track session on Tuesday. I would have another workout on Thursday, maybe a fartlek or a track session. I would have a long run on Friday, And then I would have another workout on Sunday, and in between some easy running. I don't give such training to a lot of my athletes. Most of my athletes are doing 2 workouts a week. Sometimes 3 or 4. Sometimes I give double workouts.
Yeah.
So like Tuesday might be a day they do a small workout in the morning, like a 5K tempo run, and then a track session in the evening. But then they would have 2 days of just easy running before they have another track
another
session,
hard session.
another hard session, another workout. So I think sometimes I was lucky. I had a very good coach, and I could handle a lot. But the training program I got was pretty hard, and I would also do it on the harder side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you'd always push yourself.
I would always push myself, and I think if I could go back, I would tell myself, like, take it a little bit easy, you know.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of problems with my Achilles later in my career, from the age of 28 to 37. So that may have not happened if I was a little bit more careful, you know, if I wouldn't have pushed all the time so hard. And I think I would still be able to reach the same level, or maybe even better, but not less, if I would have been a little bit more careful. Yeah.
That's really interesting, because I read biographies of some runners, and every single runner talks about that.
Okay.
Yeah, so? Like Bill Rogers and this guy who has all the master records in America. This guy's interesting. He also plays saxophone. He's like jazz musician, and they all talk about, I never missed my workout. It was good, but maybe I pushed too much.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's Emil Zatopek. Who pushed crazy hard. He was a crazy, very passionate person. But I forgot, I was reading this book. There's one guy who was coming up when Zatopek was at his height, at his peak. And this guy trained much less than Zatopek. And Zatopek was always curious, why is he running faster than me when I am training more than him, much more than him? And maybe it's because that guy was saving for the races, or
and maybe he was just more talented.
Maybe more talented,
you know, not everyone needs the same amount of training, but of course it's possible that Zatopek overdid it. If you see or hear read how he trained, it's possible. But you know, most of the good runners, they are extremely passionate about running, about their training, so they go into it with the full heart, with all the energy, and you kind of need that, you know. Those are the people who make it to the top, right? You need that passion, but it's also kind of a trap, you know. That passion can lead you to overdo it. It was for me also. I think when looking back, I would say that I probably overdid it. I never really overtrained up to the point that I couldn't run anymore, but I could have done less and still performed the same, I think, and maybe have a little bit less injury, you know. So, but it's okay. In general, I think, you know, not many people came as close to like the maximum level they have in them as I did, if you know what I mean. Like, I think I came very close to the maximum amount of talent that I have. You know, I mean, there's lots of people who have the talent to run a 2:12 marathon, but they end up running a 2:20 or 2:18 or slower than that, right? So I think I came very close to what I can do. So I'm satisfied.
That's good. And kind of add on that, so if there's any advice you want to give to like runners out there, beginners or amateur runners, what would that be?
So for me, in my training philosophy, 2 things are very important. I mean, many things, but 2 things that I can think of right now that stand out. One is variation or variety. You know, always have variation in your training. I don't believe there's any system, you know, like you have to do lots of threshold work or lots of field to max training or lots of long runs or whatever. You have to have variety. There must be a little bit of everything. You have to keep stimulating your body and your mind in different ways, right? So if you do a long run every week 90 minutes long run at about the same pace, and at some point that's not a stimulus to your body anymore. You have to keep changing it. And of course in the beginning everything is a stimulus, everything is new, but it's the more and more you train, the more you have to keep changing. So that's one thing, you have to keep changing. And the second thing is that when you want to build a house, you build a foundation first,
Mhm.
right? When you want to build a 10-story flat, you have to build a very, very strong foundation.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it will collapse.
Mhm.
So what I mean with that is that if you want to become a really good runner, you need a really good foundation, which means you really have to work on your aerobic system and also your strength, a little bit of speed, but you don't want to hurry into doing too much long intervals at race pace,
Mhm.
because those are things that can come later. You first want to build your aerobic house, your aerobic system, and do the strength training to be able to handle all the training, right? So this is part of building a foundation. That's important, and that's also what I do with my athletes in India. I always have a long-term vision. I never think, it's not even fun for me to think like, okay, I've got a 16-year-old here. I want him or her to be really, really good when they're 19 and go to the World Junior Championships. No, if they reach that level that they can go to World Juniors, nice, But I'm only thinking like when they're 26, when they're 28. That's when I want them to be good.
Mhm.
So everything we do in training is related to that. Building up step by step, building up the mileage, building up, their aerobic level. And that's of course not just doing easy runs. I mean, when someone is a beginner, that's just easy jogging. But it's also like threshold sessions, moderate running, hill work, long runs, fart legs,
Mhm.
Different types of training to stimulate the aerobic system. Yeah.
What's the difference between strength training and interval trainings?
Well, strength training, I mean
Like gym,
lifting weights,
lifting
for
weights.
instance. I do that also with 15, 16-year-olds. We started at age, I wouldn't do it with a 12-year-old.
Mhm.
I'm not coaching any 12-year-old, but
Yeah.
at the age of 15, 16, I think you can start lifting weights. We do stuff like squats, lunges, to make the legs stronger. I mean, in Kenya, when they're that age, they lift so much stuff, walking up a mountain,
and heels.
Yeah. They do it in a natural way, like what we talked about. But so I think that's good. Strength training. That's what I mean with strength training. And the second, another form of strength training is circuit training, where you do like jumping exercises. You may do some body exercises like a hamstring bridge. I can't show it now, but there's a lot of exercises you can just do on a mat. Using your own body weight. You can do so many strength
for your
exercises.
hips and
Yes, for your hips, for your hamstrings, for your core. So generally I would let my athletes do that like 2 or 3 times a week, those full body exercises using their own body weight. Once a week they would lift weights, or sometimes twice a week, and then hill work, hill sprints, 10 seconds uphill sprinting, or even 30 seconds uphill. So this is part of strength training. That's what I mean with strength training. So that's different from building your aerobic system where you do a fart leg, or 5 times 6 minutes interval. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's really good advice, because a lot of amateurs and beginners, they just do the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
Hoping that it would improve, but that's probably not gonna happen.
No.
I used to do it too.
Yeah. Well, it's for many people.
Yeah.
When I didn't train with when I started training when I was 15, so I didn't really train with a club before that. But I know how people train. Yeah, they would just go out and have their pace. They say, this is my pace, and then they have a certain pace that they run for 40 minutes or 50 minutes or whatever. And later, as a runner, when you're coached, you learn to run in different paces. You run, when you do 1 minute intervals, you run at a different pace than when you do 10-minute intervals, and you do hill works, and sometimes you take an active recovery break where you keep jogging. Sometimes you take a passive break where you just wait and stand still, or walk, So there are different ways of stimulating your body, and you have to keep stimulating in different ways.
Yeah.
That's the most important, I think.
Yeah. And if there's any, what's the most kind of stupid advice that's thrown around by runners do you hear often? Like, when you hear this so often, you hear this like quite often, and a lot of people think it's true about running or fitness, but it's actually not really working for people, if there's any.
Well, I don't come across a lot of really stupid advice, actually, but you hear different things, like in general, every advice that is too strict about something is not so good. So people would say, for instance, quality is the only thing that's important. Like mileage doesn't matter. Or the opposite, they would say it's all about mileage. The more mileage you run, the better you'll compete, in races. It depends on the person. It depends on the situation. Generally speaking, there should be a mixture of mileage and quality,
So
right?
balanced.
There should be a balance, and this balance should not be the same throughout the year. If you look at professional runners, they may make a 1 week 100k and another week 170k, another week 130k. They definitely won't make 40 or 50k per week. So there is a certain amount of mileage, but there's also quality, right? So it's not one or the other. Both things
Really
are not
good
true.
point. Yeah.
But and it also counts with other advices. That's people who say like, you must do this type of training. Well, then I say it really depends on the person. Like for me as a coach, I kind of, I'm also educated as a scientist. I don't know if that matters, but I try to look at it empirically. Like, you look at the athletes, you give them a certain training, and you see, does it work? And it might work for 8 people out of a group of 10, but not for the 2 others. And then it's very easy to say like, oh, those 2 are not motivated, or they are not talented. But maybe that training doesn't work for them. That's always my first assumption. Not that it's about them. It's not their fault. It might be just the stimulus that they don't respond well to. So maybe those people need a different type of stimulus, right? So maybe high mileage and lots of endurance and lots of threshold sessions might work for one of my Indian runners, but another one may need half of that mileage and much more quality speed work, right? So you always have to look at the individual, right? So and what works for one doesn't work for everyone. There are some things that work for most long distance runners, but not everything. And some people just respond better to certain type of training than other people. So that's why every advice that is kind of too, how do you say this?
Too generic.
Yeah, maybe that's the right word.
Like,
that it counts for everyone. And right, some people say like, strength training doesn't work. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but it works for someone else very much, right? One coach one time told me, make sure you do your long run easy. He told me that was the mistake I made. I made my long runs too hard. And I said, like, look, there's nothing wrong with doing a hard long run. Of course, if you do 3 workouts in a week and you add to that a hard long run, you're overtraining yourself. So probably if you have those 3 hard workouts, you should do your long run easy. But if you have done, like a Tuesday hard workout, and then you took it easy for 2 days, then on Friday you can do a hard long run as a quality session. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean the hard long run is better than the easy long run. There are different ways of stimulating.
It's the context.
Exactly, it's the context, and it's what you're preparing for. And all my athletes do hard long runs, but not every week, and depending on what they prepare for. So sometimes it's like, a 25k at a pretty high pace. Like not all out, but close to all out. And sometimes it's like a 25k or 30k at an easy pace. And some weeks there's no long run, right? So depending on, like you say, depends on the context and what they're preparing for, and
Learning a lot. I think people will learn a lot here too. We've been talking a lot, so I wanna kind of wrap up. But before, I think now you're retired from your running career. You're focused on raising your kids, having raising a good family, and you're also doing not only work in the running field but also working for the children who kind of need help but don't really get help in Kenya. And you talked about the legacy. So what's if in 30 years, if you can kind of picture and imagine, like, what would make you say, Hugo, you did it well, man, like, to yourself? Like, if there are some criteria, I'm sure, like family, foundation work, the school work, the charity work, and maybe coaching career. In those things, maybe there are 1 or 2 things that if you have accomplish by when you're like 70? You'd say you did it, Hugo.
That's a good question, and to be honest, I don't really know a good answer to that. I mean, what we've been doing with the charity, we'll just continue with that, and of course, helping more children and touching more people's lives is important. But I don't want to set a certain minimum, like, okay, when you've done that, you've done enough. No, I'm happy doing what I do, and I feel blessed that I can do it, and that I can help people, and it's not my own money. I'm just spending time and energy into it, and a little bit of my own money, but most money comes from other people, of course, who donate to the charity. But I'm happy I'm in this position. I can help them. When it comes to the coaching, of course, I have goals for every single athlete. And by the time I'm 70, I definitely hope, that I've brought some people to the Olympic Games, some more people, and to World Championships, and hopefully medal winners. But even that really depends on their talent. I'm as happy coaching, a super motivated boy or girl who doesn't have much talent and try to bring them to their maximum level, as I am in coaching someone who has much more talent and maybe can go to the Olympic Games. So there's not a very big difference for me there.
It's more helping them develop themselves.
Yeah, exactly. For me, the development is all that counts. Yeah, and the talent is something the athlete can't help. But what's important for me is that the athletes are focused and really determined, and then I want to see them progress and improve, and and develop as people also. And of course, I have some people that I coach that I feel like they are talented enough to be at the Olympic Games or to be in the top 10 at the World Championships or something, and then you wanna be able to reach that within 5 or 6 years or 8 years or whatever. But it's hard to say, like, okay, you must have at least an Olympic champion, or you must have brought at least 10 people to Olympics. I don't want to say that, because that really depends on how many athletes with that type of talent come on my path. You know what I mean? I have to be lucky also in a way, like these two Indian guys, Murli and Abhishek. They're now performing at a pretty high level, and they have a chance, a small chance, but they have a chance to qualify for the Olympics next year. They are lucky that they have me as a coach, but I'm also lucky that I have them as an athlete. We are lucky with each other, because if we hadn't found them, if they hadn't found us, if they were not willing to come to our team, then I wouldn't have them, and I still have a great team without them. But when it comes to performances of athletes, of course, those are the guys that have a chance to go to World Championships and Olympic Games. You must have a certain amount of luck as a coach to meet such athletes and to get the opportunity to work with them, right? So I just I don't want to set a minimum. I have my goals for every single athlete, but for me as a person, it's more important that I'm just doing what I have to do as a coach to develop people, and I am satisfied when I feel like I've given everything. And it doesn't depend on the performances of the athlete so much. It depends on, I know when I've given everything and I've given enough, and that I do the right thing and say the right thing, and that I'm honest and transparent, and that if I ever come to work with an athlete who I think uses drugs, it has never happened to me so far, but I hope I'll be strong enough to say, like, hey, I don't want to work with you, even if this person can be an Olympic champion or something. I don't care, because there's a few things that I feel very, very strongly about. So one of the things is just being honest in your whole life, and in sport also. It's a game in the end. We make it a big deal, but in the end it's a game. We're all playing together, and we are lucky that we're in this position that we can devote our lives to just playing a game. So at least what we can do is do it honest.
Right.
When I played Monopoly with my daughter this morning, if someone is cheating, you don't want to play with them anymore.
No.
Right? So it's the same for me in sports. Like, if I see someone who is cheating, I don't want to have anything to do with such a person. I want to run away from them. And luckily, I have not coached any athletes so far who was doing that, or at least as far as I'm aware. But that's one of the things that's important for me. yeah, and other things, of course, to be there for my family and to raise two beautiful daughters, and and who knows, they may start running or not. We'll see.
Are they running? Do they?
The youngest is 1 year old, but the other one is almost 4. But yeah, they run a lot here in the garden. Yeah. Yeah, so we'll see. I don't mind. I prefer that the first 15, 16 years of their life, they just have fun and do other stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe also football, maybe tennis, whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
And then if they're, 16, 17, who knows? Maybe they make a choice for running.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, if they do, I would like to coach them. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think that'll be great. And also, you have your wife also.
Yeah. There must be some
good genes there. Yeah.
I would think so. Yeah. I hope they get her physical talent and my, determination. Then it's a good combination, I think. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Anything, just for last thing, anything you want to say, just share with runners out there who's watching this?
Yeah, well, maybe the first thing that comes to mind is that for me as a coach is important, and has also been important as a runner, is always just to focus on your own development. Because for me, that's really all that matters. Not to compare so much with other people, but just developing yourself as a person.
I need that advice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, because I feel like that's important. If you develop yourself as a person, running can make you a better person, not just as a runner, but also as a human being. When I was a young runner, like 20, 21 years, I felt like I underperformed in races, and I went to see a sports psychologist who was working with the Dutch Olympic team, was a really good guy, and I wasn't that level, but I hired him to, teach me sports psychology stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like it changed my career and it changed my life because...
What did he tell you?
Well, he didn't let me... That's the funny thing, I was thinking like, I have to lay down and he will talk about problems and stuff. He didn't do that. He took me to a golf court and we were going to hit a golf ball, and he told me how to focus and how to put my hips inside and how to swing, the club, you call it, I think, and how to hit the ball. And I was like, what's this guy doing? Why are we playing golf? And what about my running? I'm a runner. And but he was very smart. He taught me how to focus. And he taught me that you can do anything, if you want to perform in anything, in running or it doesn't matter in what, focus is the most important. So being able to focus, being able to be concentrated on something and not to care about the future, not to care about the past, but only focus on the present, only focus on what you're doing right here, right now, right? That's what I learned there. And that has had a huge impact on my career. I can honestly say that since the age of, let's say, 23, 24, I never had a single bad race in my career, except when I was totally out of shape. Then I was just physically not ready. But if I was always able to get the performance that I could physically get, basically. So
your mind was never on your way. It always.
Yeah, my mind was never an issue. I was always mentally strong and able to focus on the right moment, able to peak at the right moment, and get the best performance possible, considering the training I had done. Yeah, and it also reflected on other things in life, right? Because being able to focus also helps you in other things, in life, in when you're working, when you're studying. So that's one thing. And another thing is also, I think, as a runner, it's a little bit different subject, but as a runner, if you want to perform, you don't need stress, right? And there are many types of stress. There's even the type of stress that you have in a relationship to another person.
Right, like, that's huge.
You're upset with someone or you're irritated or something. As a runner, that's something you have to solve because it affects your running performances, your career.
Right.
So you learn to solve those things in a good way, not by shouting at people saying, I have to be upset with you because you're irritating me. No, you learn to deal with things
much better.
Yeah, because you learn to listen to your body, and your body gives the signals that you need. If you're irritated about something, you feel the stress in your shoulders or your headache or your stomach or wherever you feel it. Different people feel it in different places. So you learn to listen to that. You learn to deal with it. You learn like, hey, I have an issue with my boss, I have to solve this. So you go to him or her and you discuss that, so that you get it off your chest, you know. So for me, being able to pursue like a professional career, I think helped me in many ways, you know, to become a more stable person. I hope. Yeah. So
Well, you seem very stable to me, very peaceful and very grounded.
not always. I do my best for the camera. No, but yeah, of course you, as a runner, I think as a professional runner, all you do is kind of, how do you say this? You're all the time, you know, bringing yourself out of balance, basically because of the hard training that you do. You know, being super focused, being super passionate about something, kind of by standard means that there's no balance in your life, because you are doing too much of one thing, right?
Yeah.
So in all the other things, I try to get that balance, right? So I try to get enough balance in, you know, eating right, sleeping right, having enough time for my family, having enough time to relax, having also enough time to focus, to study, to work, being balanced in that way, so that you can permit yourself a certain amount of unbalance, you know, when it comes to your passion. I mean, there's moments now also as a coach when, you know, for 2 weeks in a row when I'm in India, or 3 weeks in a row, I'm working 12 hours a day, and when I'm done, I'm completely exhausted. Because I'm so passionate about it, and I find stuff online, and I do online courses, and I read books, and I work with my athletes, and I have meetings with them, and we have discussions with other coaches, and I'm just so much into it. And I kind of like that, I kind of want that, but around that I try to create more balance, if that makes sense, you know. And of course I don't do that all the time. I try to really maintain a certain life-work balance, but sometimes I miss that balance because I'm so passionate about it. Just like as a runner, I was so passionate about my running that I would sometimes overtrain. And maybe you sometimes need to overtrain a little bit, you know, to get to your highest level. But yeah, that's what I feel like, you know, because you are so passionate about something, you kind of lose the balance in a certain part of your life, so you try to balance other things as much as possible.
I think that's why maybe some athletes who are successful, like who like do bring out all of their potential, have other things very simple. Maybe. They keep it simple, like stay grounded.
I think so. I think
so they can always come back and feel balanced. I think that's very possibly true. Because you're in India 3 weeks working very hard. Now back in Italy, with your family, relaxing, you have that kind of balance. That's true. I look for that balance also, being out in the nature. It's helpful. I have something else funny. A few months ago I read about some in a book called Peak Performance, great book from Steve Magnus and Red Stolberg, about a lot of top performers in different kind of areas who always have the same clothes. And then I realized I have like 8 blue shirts in my closet, because I don't want to think every day like, what am I going to put on? No, it's just either the light blue or the dark blue shirt, you know? So it's like one of these things you don't want to think about, because you have other things to care about, right? So you want to keep your life as simple as possible, so that you can focus on the other really
things.
important things. Training, family, coaching.
Exactly. And still try to keep a balance in the other stuff, because you know, when you train really hard, or when you work really hard, or there is always the chance that the risk that you overdo it. Right. So for me, that risk is there, that I overwork, because kind of the person who just gets too much into it, you know, just because I love it so much. So I have to force myself, you know, after a few hours, take a break, take a proper lunch. Don't start checking your WhatsApp messages during lunch. Just I really make sure that I switch off my phone certain hours a day, and I switch it on certain hours a day, so that I know these are the hours that I because when my phone is on, you know, I get maybe 30, 40, 50, 60 different people on a day that are texting me. So, you know, if I want, I can text the whole day, but that's not good, you know, that's not healthy. So I try to switch it off for some hours, and then when I switch it on, I sit behind my computer. I work really, and then after that I switch it off. So you have to try to maintain that balance, and especially with, you know, telephone nowadays and with social media, I see a lot of people are struggling with that. I'm not the only one. You know, everyone struggles with that. So you have to be disciplined. You have to take time to just take a proper meal, you know, talk with each other, talk with people, be outside in nature, go for a run, you know.
Take a walk.
Yeah, or take a walk.
Put your phone on airplane mode. That's what I do where I feel like, oh, I'm spending too much time on my phone.
Yeah. Airplane mode is great. Yeah. So,
well, Hugo, I don't want to take too much of your time.
Well,
thank you.
I hope we've discussed a lot. Yeah.